Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight Sessions. My name is Rebecca Carton, the host, and I am extremely excited and honoured to be having a conversation today with the one Wren Zimmerman. Wren, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And whereabouts are you based, Wren?
I'm based in Lexington, Kentucky, kind of the horse capital of the U.S.
Yeah.
In the United States.
Awesome. So, Ren, I know that we previously did have a conversation and I got to learn a little bit about the work that you're doing, about yourself. But if you don't mind, maybe, for those, of course, who don't know, just to give us that introduction, tell us about you, yourself. That would be great.
Of course. So I am a legally blind equestrian show jumper. I was diagnosed with Stargardt's macular dystrophy at 17 years old. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's a progressive degenerative eye disease that essentially gets worse over time and led to my legal blindness, which happened about halfway through college. After finishing college, I decided to pursue this lifelong dream of learning to ride and jump horses. And it's something that I've always loved, but didn't have the opportunity to do growing up. And so I started at a therapeutic riding center in the time in between college and grad school and kind of got a taste of horses and was hooked since. And then after going off to grad school, just sort of dealing with life and the struggles of having a visual impairment, I decided that the path I was on before I lost my eyesight wasn't really for me anymore. And so I decided to kind of pivot and focus my full attention on this lifelong dream of learning to ride and jump horses. And from there, I actually moved across the country from Oregon to Kentucky to pursue this more seriously. And since then, I have also been advocating for the sport of show jumping, which I do, and I compete against able-bodied riders currently, for that to become a paradiscipline. So that's making it more accessible to people with all sorts of different disabilities, with the ultimate goal of it becoming a Paralympic sport.
Wow. Amazing, Ren. And obviously, you
Thank
just
you.
obviously you just mentioned quite a large range of things that you do. But tell me, I guess, Ren, tell me in terms of your day to day, whether it's the training side of things, or whether it's, as you're saying, more, developing. Um, it's not necessarily an organization, but developing obviously the mission in terms of making this into an official sport.
Mm-hmm. So my day to day, pretty much everything in my life since I became legally blind has changed. Everything from how you do your daily chores, doing the dishes, brushing your teeth, to having to have a driver, not being able to drive, not being able to do groceries, not being able to get myself to the barn to ride my horse. So I think what a lot of people that don't have a disability or don't know someone with a disability don't realize is how much these disabilities affect our everyday lives. From the outside, they kind of just think, oh, that's inconvenient, but they don't realize that it really does touch every single aspect of our lives day in and day out. That being said, I do a lot of work on the computer, both sponsorship side of things, networking, pushing this movement forward, lots of emails. So there's a lot of adaptive software that I use on the computer end, a combination of the speaking softwares, text to speech. I have a little bit of peripheral vision that's very blurry, so sometimes I use that to sort of make out shapes of words and pictures on the screen. I have my computer connected to a really large TV as my computer screen. And then on the horse side of things, I do have a driver that takes me out to the barn, works with my horse kind of thing. And there's a lot of adaptations with that as well, of course. I can't see where the horse might be in a field if I have to go out and get him, learning my coursework as I'm jumping around a course kind of thing. So I could go into a lot more detail about that, but essentially it's adapting every aspect of my life, trying to figure out how to make it work living with this disability.
Well, Ren, you are amazing. You know what I think of you. I do have to ask specifically about your horse because you keep mentioning your horse. So, what's your horse's name? Is this the same horse that you have been with since you were 17, since you made that change?
Yeah, so no, to answer your question, no, he is not the same horse that I've been with since I was 17. Backtracking really quickly, I did start at a therapeutic riding center, and then from there, I wanted to pursue jumping, and the instructor there actually told me that because of my eyesight, that would never be possible. So I sort of took that as a challenge accepted and went on to find a trainer who was interested in working with me and willing to work with me despite never having worked with someone with a disability. And she took me from never having jumped a course to competing against able-bodied riders. So from there, she had put me on a few of her different horses. And then once I moved across the country, I kind of had to find a horse that would be a good fit. And I tried a few different ones. And eventually I found my current horse. His name is Valentine, about 2.5 years ago. And he has adapted to being a seeing eye horse, if you will, is what I call him. But it's been an interesting journey. With my eyesight, my central vision is totally blank, and then my peripheral vision is very, very blurry, and so I can't see any detail. It's one of those things where the more contrasting color, the easier it is for me to see, the larger the surface area. So there's a big blob of blue that perhaps a jump in the arena is, I can see that blob of blue. But I kind of see that out of my peripheral vision, and horse's body sort of mimics your own body. And so initially when I started working with him, I would kind of switch my body and turn my body to look out of my peripheral vision, and he didn't really understand that I still wanted him to go straight as opposed to the direction that I was moving my body. So he has since learned what I want, and so it's kind of been a process to figure out that partnership and work together. But one of the really cool things about him is that he's a been there, done that kind of horse. He's a little bit older. He's already jumped some big tracks. He knows what his job is. And so for me, being able to learn from his experience and knowing that he will go over a jump no matter what, no matter if we're straight to it, no matter if we have the wrong distance, he'll always go. So that's kind of been the most important thing for our partnership.
Wow, and that's such a special sorry, that's such a special relationship though to have with Valentine.
Mm.
And obviously the fact that you've come to be able to compete with able-bodied riders, I think just shows in itself, obviously, how well you guys have done together as a partnership. So how amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And Ren, tell me, obviously, this has been a long road, as you're saying, but is there maybe one specific, thing or achievement that you are most proud of?
That's a hard one. I think there's a few different ones. On a personal side, one of my goals has always been to jump bigger, to do better. And my ultimate goal is to be the first blind person to compete at the Grand Prix level. So I think for me, anytime I move up in the level as far as competition goes, I feel like that's an accomplishment. My horse Valentine actually is not an easy horse to ride. He's been sent back from leases by multiple different people. So another kind of neat accomplishment is being able to work through him with that and bring his trust out in a human, which when I first got him, he clearly didn't have. And so kind of as silly as this sounds, me being a little broken with my eyesight, him being a little broken with his trust issues, to be able to play a part in his coming to trust someone and him coming out of his shell and, that playful, kind horse that didn't exist when I first got him, has really been an accomplishment to be able to kind of play that role in an animal's life. On the more broader scale, pushing this parashow jumping movement through has been incredibly humbling. One of the main reasons I'm doing this, I mean, there's plenty of them, but it's for people who aren't as fortunate enough as me where they can't compete against able-bodied riders, whether their disabilities don't allow for it, whether they're the accommodations they need just don't fit into a regular horse show. It's for people like that have always wanted to show or want to participate in the sport and don't currently have the opportunity that they'll be able to do that. And so one of the really neat things about doing this is the people I've been able to connect with and the people that reach out to you on social media. And you hear their stories and you realize this really does make a difference for so many people. It can impact people's lives in ways I only hoped. So that's been incredibly humbling.
Wow, amazing. And tell me, Ren, so where are you now when it comes to that side of things that you've just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in terms of kind of the progress that you have made. I know initially in our phone call, you're not quite at the start. There was some exciting news that you mentioned. So yeah, tell us how the movement is going.
Absolutely. So I started campaigning for this movement about 7 years ago in 2015. And that process started with reaching out to the countries that already recognized it. Great Britain was at the forefront of the parashow jumping movement, along with a few other countries, and just kind of doing the research, starting to reach out to the governing bodies here in North America, both in the US and Canada, connecting with the different people I thought was necessary to kind of propel this forward. Since then, I have been able to get the governing bodies here in North America to have meetings and discuss moving forward with it, and recognizing it, essentially, because that's the first step, is having it become an officially recognized discipline here in the US and Canada, and then, as I said, ultimately a Paralympic sport. And so this process, as I said, has taken 7 years just to get to this point. It is not officially recognized yet. COVID kind of delayed the process by a little bit. But what's really exciting is we're going to be holding the first ever official parashow jumping demonstration in North America at the Land Rover Kentucky 3-day event, which is a massive equestrian competition held here in the US. It has 80,000 plus spectators. And so this is sort of an opportunity to introduce the discipline on a world stage, essentially. I mean, there are people that come from all over the world, both to compete and see this competition. And so it's also kind of putting it on people's radar, people that don't know about it, people that maybe aren't sure how it works, proving that it's both possible and safe for people with disabilities to jump horses. And so from there, the hope then is that the governing bodies will say, okay, we've seen this proof of concept, we're ready to move forward with regulating the discipline. And that's when everything will really start, even though it's, again, like 7 years into this process. I feel like we're still just at the beginning. But that's a huge milestone for equestrian sport as a whole and for the disabled community. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, of course, it's an enormous milestone, really, and I can't wait to kind of hear, obviously, as you know, things progress, how it goes. So I'm very excited for you, and really, really kudos to you on the amazing work that you've been doing. So one of the questions, Wren, that we always ask, and it's such a broad question, and we love it because everyone really just takes this such a different way. But Wren, tell me, you know, what does accessibility mean to you?
Mm-hmm. A lot. I mean, that's a great question. Accessibility means accepting people who are different and making it possible for them to live their life in the most normal way possible. I think, as I touched upon earlier, you know, every single facet of our day-to-day lives as a person with a disability is touched and becomes different with this disability. And accessibility, again, makes it possible for us to become as close to mainstream as possible. You know, I don't think it's ever really going to be at that point, but it at least contributes and helps it make things a little bit easier and a little bit more accessible, if you will, to use the word. So I know that's kind of a broad answer to that question, but I think accessibility is incredibly important, and it's something, as I've become more blind, I guess, if you will, I realize more and more every day how important it is.
Yeah, no, it's not vague. It's a beautiful answer, Wren. And you mentioned, you know, just making things, you know, easier. So if you maybe would have a conversation, you know, to a business owner or someone, you know, to cater specifically for, you know, maybe the blind community, what would your message to them be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Essentially, you know, again, touching upon what I said earlier, is that we go about things in a different way, and just because we might do things in a different way to accomplish the same end goal, it doesn't mean that it's the wrong way to do it. But that being said, as a business owner, it's so important to make that possible, to give those people with disabilities the opportunity to be at the same level as someone without a disability, and to give them the resources and the tools they need to be able to do that and to be able to be successful in their everyday life.
For sure. That's amazing, Wren. I couldn't agree more with you. As a question, Wren, this is always a funny question, but if there was someone in the world that you could, you know, have a conversation with, who would that person be, and tell us why?
Also a great question. I guess on one hand, this has nothing to do with my disability or accessibility, but my grandmother, which my middle name is named after, she died just a few weeks after I was born, and she's someone that played such a large part in my dad's side of the family. He has an extended family that's pretty large, and just being able to talk to her and get to know her and know the person she was. Again, nothing really to do with this, but that's something that I've always wished I had the opportunity. Or someone I always wish I had the opportunity to talk to.
That's beautiful. But I'm sure, Ren, that you have a lot of family support and community support, with everything that you're doing in your day to day.
It cut out a little bit. Can you say
Yeah,
that
sure.
again?
Sure. I just said that I'm sure that you have still a lot of family support and community support now in your day to day.
Absolutely, yes. My boyfriend actually is the number one biggest supporter. I mean, while he has a job, obviously can't drive me all the time. He does everything he can. He drives me when he needs to. He acts as my aide at horse shows. He helps take care of my horse. He helps do my sponsorship side of things and putting together a lot of my marketing documents and my social media, because I can't see very well. And so he, again, I mean, has done so much. So I really appreciate his support. And the rest of my family as well have been very supportive. My trainers, coaches on the equestrian side of things, as well as other para-equestrians who support the para-show jumping movement. I mean, as you said, there's such a huge community that's supportive, both of my personal endeavors as well as the para-show jumping movement as a whole. So I really appreciate all of them.
Wow, amazing. And Ren, whether it's, the movement side of things, the sponsorship side of things that you mentioned previously, if a listener from the show would want to get involved and help you and your mission, how is the best way for them to do that, to get in contact, and really, what is it that you're looking for?
Mm-hmm. So pretty much on the personal side, equestrian sport is obviously expensive. So I'm at the point where my horse is actually older, so I am looking for a new horse. So to be able to continue my own training and competing and be able to achieve my personal goal of becoming the first blind person to compete at the Grand Prix level, I'm currently looking for supporters, sponsors, horse owners, to kind of help on that side of things. And then also, over the past 7 years, I've essentially kind of been volunteering, if you will, my time to this movement, and it's become a full-time job. And because the governing bodies don't recognize the discipline yet, they can't pay people to push this forward. And so it takes someone who isn't a salaried employee, I guess, of those organizations, but to be able to continue to propel this forward, that funding that would allow me to pursue my personal goals would also allow me to see this movement to fruition and essentially be able to continue pushing it through with the governing bodies. I'm working on putting together a nonprofit to support the discipline and the movement, along with other programming that will eventually be able to help other para-equestrians participate in the jumping disciplines.
Incredible. Ren, we're here to support you in accessiBe and everything that you're doing. Really, I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and it's absolutely incredible
Thanks.
to watch all these things happen and to watch your growth. And Ren, it's an absolute pleasure that we were able to host you on the show today. And I, obviously can't wait to continue our conversation in the future and, just grow our relationship.
I appreciate that. I'm so excited to, be able to connect with accessiBe and appreciate you guys having me as well.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Ren.
Thank you.